Hello, good early afternoon, joyful Christian Mystic Hermit. Well, I haven't had videos for a couple of days. I had to get a new phone, and I had done 2 videos on Sunday, and there was no sound. And I don't know if it was my arachnoiditis or the phone or whatever. But then, what was the other thing? Oh, I would take pictures and of things, and they wouldn't come up on my phone. Like, I take pictures of information. It's just so much faster than writing out a lot of notes. So anyway, it just took time. I was out in the world yesterday. I had to run errands, took birthday gifts over to my daughter and her fiance. They they have birthdays 12 days apart, but somehow I got confused and thought his was the 12th, and I thought, well, that can't be right, because I thought they were a couple of weeks apart from each other. And so my mind is just, I guess it's a wonder that I remembered 12 anyway, but that all went well, because I'm taking to heart, I'm sure, what the Trinity that dwells within wants me to learn by these amazing events of a poem that I wasn't even going to share because I thought it was so odd. I never got it back in 1987 when I wrote it, where these numbers are like dodecahedron. I didn't know what that was. I knew what pentagonal, that was 5, 5-face surface or something, but a pentagon. But it was just a weird poem, and I wasn't even sure what it was about, so I wasn't going to share it. But I did, and it did have a message from God in it. The last 2 sections were from God, telling me, to relax and to go with His flow and His energy. And it just seemed weird, though, at the time, and even when I read it the other day. But then I decided to look up dodecahedron, and that opened up all this information that I was totally unaware. So Gray Rocking has written it. She had a time in her life where she was drawing out illustrations, lines, and graphs, and it wasn't until years later she realized they were earthquake charts, that somehow she was just inspired. She was drawing, and that's what came out. But I forgot to ask, I responded to her comment. I would like to know, was there a message to her for her spiritual life, that she was to do something differently with her life? Or was it something connected with her life? The earthquakes or something, or the drawing of the charts somehow. Chart drawing somehow was something that connected with something she was to change or grow in or do. Because one thing leads to another. I was talking about these things the other day in a video, and then shared about this time in this parish where I was praying, and the energy, the power of this force of an insight, where I had encountered a couple of priests that were so disappointing. And of course, by then I had already met my spiritual father, who was so delightful and encouraging and true blue, straight as an arrow priest, cared about everything, cared about the church, cared and lived his spiritual life, but also was very balanced, great sense of humor, great Irish sense of humor, and loved sports and balanced in the whole bit, but very dedicated and sacrificing. He was being persecuted by these religious sisters, so not all of them, all but about 5. Oh, enough, plenty, too many. So, and he handled it so well, not complaining. Even came up with a reason why he thought they were that way. That in a way, they were disappointed. They'd been told all these things that were going to happen at Vatican II, and they didn't, so they were so disappointed. So he had empathy for them, forgave them, that felt that they had been misled. Well, they had been. And then they couldn't adapt when it didn't happen, when they didn't have the power. But here I'm talking about all this power, this energy and power that came that day when I was praying and had this insight about the positive, what it does to God when there's a positive priest, when there's a holy one, what energy and force and delight and power that generates, that positive does. So much so that it blew out a transformer. The energy of that insight in my mind that came from God came out the top of my head, the crown of my head, which was angled directly where this pole was. I didn't know it at the time, but after the big bang and I saw all this light shooting out of this pole, and the secretary came in, the parish secretary, and said, well, there was this huge transformer, just an explosion of energy. So, but it just showed me the power and the energy of positive. So, but I didn't grasp it then. But later, I knew that there was power in positive, and how pleased God is with positive. But it hasn't been until just the last couple or 3 days that all of that came back to me, and that I get it now. That God meant it for me for everything be positive. Positive, good, love, and how the Holy Trinity dwells within us. And if we rejoice and live the positive and the love and see the good, the truth, beauty, and goodness in others, in situations, the power and the energy that comes from the Trinity that dwells within us, great power in that. So I started to recognize by these shapes, dodecahedron, and the shapes in nature and different things I was reading about, and just doing a little research about all this stuff, the dodecahedron and stuff. Then I go to the dentist yesterday morning, had a 9 o'clock appointment, had a cavity or filling, something that needed filling. And all of a sudden, I had my mouth with clamps or whatever on it to keep it open while the dentist was doing this work. He spontaneously starts talking about these numbers. These, what are they called? I have it up here on my computer. Fibonacci sequence. The dentist starts talking about it because in his screen on a TV above the dental chair, they have this screen, and they had a zoo program on from San Diego or somewhere, and it showed this big tortoise that was needing surgery. But the dentist was watching this. Well, he was watching my mouth for the most part, but he noticed that this program was on in his dental office of a tortoise, an ancient tortoise. And he started talking to realize, he says, I've just been reading about this stuff, that the tortoise shell has 12 pentagons around the center part, and then all around the edges are 28 of them, smaller pentagons, and that's on every tortoise shell. And he says they realize it's the lunar calendar, that there's 28 days in a month and 12 months in a year, and that the actual accumulation of whatever it was ended up being just shy in the year. 12 times 28 was just shy one number, or some, I don't know how it figured out, but it was 364 as opposed to 363, which they use a calendar now that has that many days in the year. But they could have gone by the lunar calendar had they chosen that. And that would have been replicated in nature. And that in ancient times, they did use the tortoise shells as part of the keeping the calendar. So he was all excited about it. And I said, when he stopped messing, and I had a chance to say something, I said, oh, I've just been learning about this. The dodecahedrons, and I said, some kind of numbers, and he just whipped out the words, I can't remember, Fibonacci. Oh, the Fibonacci sequence. And I mentioned the dodecahedron and and things like pine cones and sunflowers. And so anyway, I couldn't talk anymore, and he started going to work, and then he was talking to his assistant about other things, not necessarily dental, but just other things. But I thought, what are the odds? I hadn't even seen that dentist in over 18 months because the last 2 times I had a different dentist. They had gone in with another group, and I just by chance happened to have a different dentist when I had my teeth cleaned. But my regular dentist then did the filling yesterday. So it was just amazing though. And I thought, God wants me to continue paying attention to this. And also, I think it was Sophia or Gray Rocking who mentioned in a comment this or something about the Fibonacci numbers. And I thought, well, I need to do a little more research on that. So I have a lot of research on that. But in this video, I want to talk about some other things, and that is this whole thing has just opened up that poem that I wasn't even going to reread because I thought it was just bizarre. And I'd even wondered, because in California, they drink wine. You drink wine, you have a bottle of wine. If somebody drops over, that was back in 87, and I wasn't a hermit, I wasn't Catholic or anything. But you'd offer a glass of wine to someone. Or at supper, you'd sip a glass of wine. Or before bed, sip a glass of red wine. It was considered, good for a woman or something. They said red wine for the heart or something. And I never have been one to hold liquor. But I was in a lot of pain then, but that was before the surgery that I wrote this. I was in a lot of pain then and no medications and didn't know which end was up with what was going on with my spine. Because I would keep going to different doctors. Oh, it's a normal spine, or this isn't bad. And finally, I had to be hospitalized. I think it was the spring break after I wrote that poem, probably 3 months later. And my family doctor had a scan taken. And he came, he says, you've got a bulge in your spine. A huge bulge. His eyes got big. He says, I've got to find a specialist for you. So that was the beginning. Thanks be to God for him. He's in heaven now. Dr. Oslin, wonderful man. And I loved observing him. And I could talk with him. He was safe. I had men who were interested in me. Even married men would be. In my church, even this Lutheran church, some old geezer was making these awful comments to me at church even. It was terrible. Till Dr. H told me what to say to him that stopped him immediately. Well, this is in case any of you guys sweet young things need to know. He would come up just, like after church, we'd be leaving or in line to shake hands with the minister or something, or at a social event, he'd come up and just whisper ugly things to me, sexual things. And he would even do it like in the church when we were in line walking out. His wife would be there, but he would just sort of get away from her and just say these things to me. And so Dr. H said, we carried purses back then. He says, put a little notebook and a pen, and you pull that out when he comes near you. And when he starts to say anything, just say, oh, wait, I've got to write all this down so I can show your wife what you're saying to me. He says it'll take a lot of courage to do it, but you've got to do it. And he will stop. He will stop if you say you're writing it down. And, or I could have even said, oh, I want to show this to the pastor, the things that you say. But I didn't even have to, he tried it one more time. I didn't even have to get a notebook out or a pen. I just said, oh, speak clearly so I remember exact words so that I can share it with your wife. And that did it. He blanched and he never again. But I had taken a lot of sexual abuse from him, from his ugly old mouth and his eyeballs staring at me and stuff. So anyway, how did I get off on that? Something with that church. Oh, the wonderful doctor. He went to that church. But he had a wife and 4 children. I loved watching them because he was so good, so faithful, so true. And I was always safe because I miss talking with men. I didn't have a husband anymore. And I could talk with my husband. We had a life that I thought it was okay till he started getting icky to me. But all the cheating that went on, I finally realized. But I didn't know he was very clever. And he lied a lot too. And I didn't know he was such a liar. I had to catch him in more lies to realize, but big lies. His life was a lie. Probably still is. If he's around people that he's trying to impress. Which was about anyone at the time anyway. So, he had it so bad that it's not something he would have gotten over in these years without a lot of therapy. Sociopath and psychopathic tendencies, they lie, habitual liars, so that they believe their own lies. But so I could talk to this doctor just to have a conversation and be safe. I knew he was so loyal and so faithful. And I loved watching him with his family because it just gave me hope and faith. There was a wonderful family, a wonderful husband and father. He was interactive with his kids, and not just when people were watching. Not I could observe them, like if they would have something at their house. So anyway, but his wife, I think she thought I was after him, got very envious. And I did love him like a soul brother. I considered him like a brother. So, but anyway, so that was a problem that she thought that. And then had just happened back there to visit. It would be 6.5 years ago. No, 7 years ago. 7 years ago about now. And I visited one of our old neighbors, one that was so helpful to me all through the time period that I was there. And after my surgeries and my, pain all the time and stuff. Such good neighbors I had in my little neighborhood. And I visited her, and and I says, oh, I want to go see them. This doctor and his wife. And she says, oh no, he's got cancer. And he's not doing well. And because she knew I was coming and had evidently talked with his wife and got the word, don't want her here, I could tell. I see these things. See, I know, I sense stuff. And it was just so clear what had gone on. So I never got to wish him well or thank him personally. I hadn't been back there in years and years. Well, I couldn't travel. So, but I finally did. I had gotten to the area and was able to drive the extra hour to go visit that little town. And I saw Dr. H. Hadn't seen him in years and years. And that was fun. Dr. H then, he became someone I could talk to, but I had moved. But we could talk on the phone. It's nice to have a balance when you're a single woman. And to be able to have men that you can talk with who aren't after you or whose wives aren't going to be envious. At the time, Dr. H's wife had died. Well, she wouldn't have known anyway. And he was another very professional, you know. But it's too bad. I don't blame women, married women, because they should know, and over time they should figure it out, but they don't. And I suppose I observed too much. That was probably it. But it was just so hopeful and positive to see a man who's so good. There it is again, the power of good and positive and love. And he loved me, and I loved him in a spiritual way. It wasn't anything. I was not a marriage breaker. Never, ever would I. That was not any intention. And I loved his mom and dad. They were like second grandparents to my kids, because my parents lived elsewhere, and but they would come and visit. My parents could, but it was just nice having this older couple who gave my kids extra attention if they'd see them at church. And it was that I think they understood the situation. They were older, they had perspective. But then other women were, and some of the men were awful. Some of the husbands were bad. But I wasn't after any of them. And I couldn't, definitely not any that were not safe. So, but he was safe. Dr. O was safe. And so he cared. He made sure, I got a doctor, got a surgeon, and he really cared about me, cared about my kids, and had invited us to that church. In fact, just a very good, holy person. So he's in heaven now, and what a wonderful person. But so this is the situation with the power of love, the power of positivity, and it's just amazing, the power and energy in goodness, truth, and beauty, and in love, kindness, and goodness of other people, and keeping a positive attitude, a positive approach. And that's where energy and power comes from the Trinity that dwells within us. And all the dodecahedron, all these different factors that I was being reminded of, and being reminded of that big power boom that came out, that force that came out from the insight, from the mind, of the how pleasing is to God, positivity, and the power of love, and being positive, and being in truth and goodness, truth, beauty, and goodness. So none of that would, take just example of the doctor and his family. Had I had been in any other way, not true, not good, not positive, then there wouldn't have been any kind of positivity or security or safety in that friendship or that encounter. So it makes a difference. And he had the Holy Spirit in him, and I had the Holy Spirit in. So it was a positive connection. And same with Dr. H. Very positive. And that's what God wants of us in life. I realized that in the past 3 days. It's up to me to make the positivity happen. And that's pleasing to God. It's comes from within, comes from the Trinity that dwells within us. And it's a choice. It's a simple choice. And what a difference it makes when I was thinking, stay away, stay clear of negativity. And I thought, well, I don't know how things are going with my relationship, the family one. And so I, yesterday, thought, well, I'm going to be a force of positive good, truth, beauty, and goodness. I got myself perked up some, put a face on, put eyebrows on. I think one's already rubbing off over there. No, it's this one. Maybe I'll just put my eyeglasses up and bring the one eyebrow down, and that helps. No, I did anything that would be positive, that would make my daughter feel good about, wow, this is my mother. She's nice looking, or she has her eyebrows on. She went to effort for me. Put a new sweater on. It's not new, but I hadn't worn it yet this winter. And got their presents all packaged up, wrapped nicely, and a nice note to her fiance and stuff. Took all the positive. And then also I pushed out of me any negative that I was concerned about, because I've been getting sort of negative about it and thinking, oh, here we go again. It's going to be negative. Or I was thinking that way. No, I realized, no, think of God and how much he loves positive. He loves positive and good and truth and beauty and life and light. So I get there. I'm upbeat. I'm positive. I'm happy. I'm inside out joyful Eucharistic Catholic. That's my little thing. My mantra I used to repeat, And it was just wonderful. My daughter and her fiance responded in kind. The energy of the love, of the positivity. And she was they were flying out today. They're going to be gone like 3.5 or 4 weeks, different, flying all over with different work they have to do. Malaysia, she's even flying to Malaysia to play pickleball there. So that's fun. And I think it's gotten paid for by one of her sponsors. So anyway, it's all a very positive thing. But she was busy. She said, I don't have much time. And I thought, but I just kept it positive. And I thought, well, I don't need to spend time. I kept it positive. I thought of the other persons. She said, we haven't packed yet. We got all this to do. And I said, oh, that's okay. But then she told me, she says, I'll go through, if you don't mind, it'll be quick, the rundown of where all we're going to be. Very nice, very, loved her gifts. He loved his, I think when I walked in and I had myself in a definite, positive, loving, inside out, joyful, conscious that the Trinity was dwelling within me always, and also just sort of experimenting, remembering that God had wanted me to catch it back then would have been 1997, I think, about when I had that experience of that transformer blowing up. And even, I thought today, even it was a transformer that blew from the power of that insight coming out. Just boom, a transformer. Positivity, love, pure love, approaching even pure love. Truth, beauty, goodness, all of that transforms. That's a power the Trinity within us gives us. All we have to do is follow through. Make the choice. Even if a situation's see, I could have done a lot more last week with all the negativity going on in Minnesota. A lot of ugliness and a lot all around. The whole thing is just a mess. And I fed into the negativity of it rather than staying positive and strong in the positive of the Trinity that dwells within me, all that pure love right inside us for the using and the asking. God wants to share it with us. The Trinity wants to give it to us, but we have to be of the disposition. In one of these things I was reading about, one philosophy took it all as attitude. He looked at it from the viewpoint of attitude. That's another way of viewing it. If we have our attitude in alignment with all this power and energy that God has effervescing in nature, effulgent, an effulgence of power and energy, of positive, of love, of interconnectedness with all things. And we can literally have so much of that's what pure love does when we utilize it. And it's in us for the asking and the using and participating with, to cooperate with all of that. And a positive, powerful insight will transform. A situation will transform situation by situation by situation. So before long, a relationship is transformed. And we can do that with our minds and our hearts, because that's all within, with God who's within, with the Trinity within. We don't have to be in a place in order to do that. That's what prayer can do. That's prayer, is a positive communication of love, a loving communication with God, who is love, about this or that or the other situation, person, need, gratitude. Always include gratitude, but sometimes when we're communicating with God, we're just communicating the joy. I have been. Thank you that the nudge was strong enough that I'll go ahead and read this weird poem into this video and, just consider it weird, No, then I think in the video I even mentioned, I think I'm going to look up what this dodecahedron is, because the message at the end of it from God was a good message, but the other was nonsense to me. And boom, there was a transformation in me of learning about these things. And then God accentuated it with these Fibonacci numbers, the sequence, but the fact that the dentist spontaneously was talking about it. I've not had conversations, or he hasn't said anything like that ever in the 6.5, 7 years I've gone to him. So, it's just another non-coincidence. It was God meant. It was another way that God speaks to us through others that we pick up on. And I'm not going to get into all these. I looked up the other aspects, spiritual aspects, and some cultures literally will use the diagrams of these shapes and things to meditate on, or get really involved in the numbers. And there's something that the number for Jesus is 888, and the devil is 666. and it explains how that is through different number formations, and part of it is the Fibonacci number sequence or something. Comes up with different aspects of Christ that are assigned number, or with the Greek name of Jesus, the Greek spelling, and certain number sequences involving that. I'm not going to get into all that. I that's not my way. It's not my culture. I don't want to get sidetracked into all of these details, but I want to keep the message that God wanted me to get, that I finally got. And that's the bottom line, how He wants me to exist. And this is a way I'm going to learn pure love. And that's through choosing love, choosing positivity, good, beauty, love, the way, truth, the life, light, all positives. And I am going to share with you in a different video, though, more about the Fibonacci sequence and how it is in nature and the spiritual significance. Because I'm sure there's more in it for me, because it's been brought up by the dentist and by, I think it was Sophia, or maybe Gray Rocking, but it's been brought up again twice now. And I think it just behooves me to review it a little bit more and share it with you, and then see what comes of that as far as the interconnectedness, how we're so interconnected with one another, but with all of nature. We're connected with thought. We're connected. I was not a huge math person. Physics I liked, but, chemistry I could do. I mean, I got my A's in it, but it was not a natural top subject for me. My two daughters they're very good at math. The eldest one, especially with technology, computers, logic, and stuff. It was just an innate gift. I think probably from my dad. Well, my mom was bright in all subjects, but I think my dad was in math and logic and things. But I didn't have that natural inclination. I'm more visionary and on the creative side of the spectrum. So, but it's the point of it is what pleases God and what produces the power and energy to transform, to blow a transformer, in fact, but to transform. And that transforms us too. Every time we choose positivity and love, and it can sort of get into even, I finally knew also what the symbol was. I should have known. The circle with the slash through it. It's a vertical, diagonal type slash through it, 0. It's the Greek letter phi. That was a sorority I was in college, which I didn't do. I should have known not to go into a sorority. That wasn't for me. I'm not a sisterhood groupie kind of person. Even then, I was more independent, and if something didn't have meaning that made it was really worth it, So all the little things with the sorority and stuff, it wasn't my thing. But I love the girls I met and stuff, but one would have been fine. I usually ended up with one friend at a time. A good friend is just satisfied me. I didn't need to be in a whole group of friends. And if that friend went a different way, there'd be another friend. I could have groups. I'd be invited to parties, girl parties in high school or junior high, but One I even left in the night. It was just too much. You know, nothing that I was interested in talking about, and I could have tried to change it, but they also were drinking, and I just didn't believe in breaking the law, underage drinking, and the parents weren't home, and I didn't like that. So I just didn't want to be part of it. And then they were getting, drunk, and what's the point? And of course, with my dad's problem that he had, and I just knew, that a drunk person isn't that enjoyable, to listen to them, or to, even if they think they're funny and are laughing or whatever. It isn't. It wasn't to me. So, but anyway, I got out of it just by saying I had something I had to do the next day and needed more sleep. I didn't say, oh, I don't agree with what you're doing, or I'm a goody two shoes, because I wasn't. But anyway, so it's the positive though, but I could have done more with that, probably, to have made it more of a positive. But if you're in a negative, you need to get away from it. If you can't bring a positive, because that's not pleasing to God. Negatives, lies, untruths, ugliness, unlove, that's not pleasing, and there's not the energy in it, not positive energy in it, or force. And it's not connective. There's no connective goodness with it in nature or with one another, which is what all this information is showing me. The connectedness of all good, all that God created, the whole cosmos. Then, ironically, I saw an article in the online news of someone writing about where is heaven, that heaven is an actual place somewhere. And they had used scientific discoveries to figure that heaven was, we go to the very end of the cosmos, and heaven is just beyond that. That it's an actual place, which I figured, of course, it would have to be. And that made sense to me, because I was really moving through the universe, where I was being taken in to meet with God. But I was going so fast, I had no idea how long or how far I had traveled. But it was so fast, I couldn't tell. But obviously, I was taken to at least the edge of the cosmos. But I wasn't in heaven yet. I wasn't in where you start seeing, and I don't know if we will see or if we need to see. I'm still undecided on that. Of course, it's not my decision, but for my own self, because I've noticed that little children who die and come back, that they often report that Jesus held them put them on his lap, or carried them, or talked to them, or held their hand and explained things to them. And they could describe Jesus and all. They also knew of Jesus, though, from Sunday school and church, and pictures in their Bible storybooks and things. So, and then adults too, who would see God or Jesus or some kind of a physical representation. Even one man said God's arm reached out from behind a curtain. But it was people who weren't that familiar, who didn't already have a great faith, or little children who would otherwise be frightened. And so God, in his goodness and in his love, in his power and energy, transforms into a shape or a personage that helps reassure children or adults or whoever. But those who don't need that are okay without. So I don't know. I don't know yet if we will be in a place that we are going to see a physical God, or Jesus or a spirit or anything. I just don't know. For me, when I died, I didn't need that. I knew I was in front of God. I didn't have to see a representation. So I don't know what's beyond in that regard, or if it just depends on the strength of our faith and how long we've had faith, that we don't need to see God as a image or a body or something. We'll find out these things, won't we? Eventually we will, sooner than later. So, but I thought that was interesting, that here was this article, I think it was Sunday, an article on one of the online news. Well, they have their online visual of what you can read, and there was that article about where is heaven. And they feel it's beyond right beyond the cosmos, where the universe ends, and it made sense the way it was described in the article. They had obviously studied a lot of these images and numbers and graphs and things. So who knows, maybe it has something to do with earthquake graphs or something. Maybe heaven will have some kind of lines or that look like Gray Rocking's earthquake graph or something. I don't know. We'll find out that too. But the whole point that I'm taking with me and have emphasized a lot with that, remembering that transformer blowing out, I think God wanted that to remind me. You can transform through the power of an energy of positivity and love coming from the insight of God, of the Holy Spirit, and of Jesus, who the Trinity within us, and the transformative power and energy to help other things become positive. So that's what I'm working on in my own life. Even today, I haven't gotten much done yet, but it's not a negative to me. And I'll just move through by listening, trying to listen to God, and to be very positive and filled with love and faith and hope that whatever unfolds, that after I do this video, what next that comes to me to do is what I will do, and I will make it very positive. Even if it's something that maybe I otherwise would think, oh, I don't want to take that on. Or, oh, that's going to be difficult. Or if it is that way, and if it's so negative that I can't make it into a positive, and I do a little examination why, well, oh, I'm tired, or the pain's too high, then I'll try to remedy the pain with a positive, which can be resting in bed more, or take the dogs on a WALK, which will help boost up my endorphins and the dopamine to get a little exercise and make them very happy. See, if we do something loving for another, even if we don't particularly want to do it, that will bring energy. That will transform ourselves. It'll transform our temptation to the negative, because the devil is the opposite. And then we can put in the whole, the devil probably has a form, a model, a diagram, the 666, we've known about that. I am going to learn a little bit more about the 888 just to understand it, what aspects it might be in this information I've got. And because it's all a reality. It's not just made up voodoo. But what I say is I'm not going to get so tied into it all or meditate using diagrams and things because I don't meditate now. Uh, I'd rather contemplate or let God take me into unitive prayer. So I don't want to get images or concrete temporal things. That's something you do when you're starting out and need help meditating or contemplating something. It's enough for me to contemplate the immense goodness and pure love of God. What is that, and how can I become that pure of love? And we can do it in just little ways of choosing positives. So there I went for years, being bothered and noticing and upset by the naughty ones that I would encounter or bad situations. And including of myself, I would dwell on things, ruminate over negatives in my life, and that just sucks the energy. Well, it doesn't engender any energy. It just invites ugliness in, which is the devil, the opposite of pure love, sheer hate or something like that. It sucks the life force out. It sucks the energy out. And I'm sure we've all been there where we'll get to the end of the day and realize it was ruined, absolutely ruined, because of some negative memory we had or something negative somebody said to us that we didn't remove ourselves fast enough, or we didn't immediately pray, love, and forgive the person and then move on with our life. The power of forgiveness, that's a tremendous power we're given because it's love. To forgive someone, even if they don't ask for it, just forgive them within our own heart, our own mind, our own soul, even in our body. Use our body in part of the love that it takes to forgive another person. That does great things for our bodies and our minds and our hearts. It multiplies like the Fibonacci numbers multiply and increase. It multiplies love. That's how we grow in pure love, more and more, by the smallest of little thoughts. So, but it's a discipline, I'm sure, and I'm not the most disciplined, but I'm going to be positive. Stop saying I'm not, for one thing. Stop thinking I'm not. And one of my favorite, I think it was my favorite book other than the Little Jesus book when I was a child, was The Little Engine That Could. I have the copy. That was one book. We shared the books, split them up. My mom said, go ahead and choose what books you want. When she was splitting up her household, getting small, Mom and Dad moved into a smaller house when they were retired. And I wanted That Little Engine That Could. The exact book that I would, and we had a record, an old, 78 record that had the story on it, and the person's talking, and I think I can, and the tired old engine, I can't, I loved it. And in fact, I used part of that in one of my answers in my doctoral 3-day written exams. I wove that story in, that book in, as also as a means of educating youth, but it had a point that I could weave that in. And also religious things I wove in, and they loved it. The head of USC's ed department at the time and the others on my committee loved it, loved my answers. So they were different, but I went positive on it positive with what I know, with what's innate to me, more than was the technology of education. But I applied it. I applied these other aspects of life. I got high honors with it, which I wasn't expecting. I was so exhausted at that point in time in my life, I didn't even know if I'd pass at all. So anyway, I want to read this. This is Sophia, and I think it's very important as we are growing, as we are being transformed by insights and by information that we find, or maybe some of the stuff that I have shared that has been an insight to me is going to help you transform, to become positive and to realize it's not just an idea, it's an actuality. It's something that actually, literally and sensibly and spiritually pleases God. When we love, and when we look to love and don't look to the negative, when we, instead of seeing the wrongs going on in church, we see the good. It's a simple thing. We've known it for years and years, but it's so easy to get into the other and to be disappointed. And disappointment is not transformative. And it doesn't bring energy. It sucks the energy out of us. It doesn't change things. I tried and tried, especially with that first priest, until God literally had to take me out of the situation, forced me out by various means, even had a dream of two big angels coming out of this room in the rectory that wasn't really there. But that was the room that these angels were in, and it's probably there in another reality or dimension. Two huge angels had that priest in there, and they came out with him and were leading him down the hall toward the kitchen of the rectory. They were going to maybe use a meat cleaver on him or something, I don't know. But they meant business with him. This was all in a dream vision. But one of the angels, the other angel, started to walk ahead with the priest. And he was somber. That priest had a look like, I'm in big trouble. And with those angels, they meant business. And the other angel took me by the arm and led me to the front door of the rectory, opened the door, and said, you need to go. Your part is done. And I got the message with that. So I stayed clear of the priest after that, but I didn't leave the parish. Well, it wasn't enough. He was a negative. It took him getting ready to hit me in the face with his arm raised when he had been stalking me all over I was trying to get out, and he had such long legs and would just go to every door for, trying to cut me off because he wanted to yell at me, and I knew it. And I tried to escape, but I couldn't. So he had it out and yelled, and he was always so convinced I was trying to be the priest and he was the priest there. He was so threatened by me. It was crazy. Well, of course, it's crazy. It's ugly. It's not normal. It was sick. I already knew he had issues. And he wasn't doing his part. He wasn't. Not to the degree that was pleasing to God, but I wasn't the one that was supposed to handle it anymore. So finally, it took another priest telling me the word had spread about this priest being so bothered by me to a nearby town that priest told me, you need to get out of this parish. It's not any good anymore. People are talking about it. It's very negative. And he says, and besides, you shouldn't be treated like that. yourself. Why do you want to take that kind of mistreatment? And just makes it worse. So I did, but that was just the first of many of my realizing God wanted me for himself as a hermit of like the desert father hermits. Hermits are not involved in parishes and in activities and all of that. And they weren't at Mass. They were out in the desert. Now, if one of them was a priest and he celebrated Mass by himself, but I know by the time it was Charles de Foucauld in the early 1900s, he had to get permission. It took him 2 years' wait to get permission from the Vatican to celebrate Mass by himself. They had some kind of a canon law then for priests that you could not celebrate Mass alone. Had to be done with another, at least one other person. So then he got this young, is a Muslim boy who had started helping him to be his altar server. I think that was it. They had to have an altar server. So he couldn't celebrate for Mass for 2 years in the desert, in the Sahara, in the area of Algiers. So anyway, I want to just talk about this. Part of this, well, I think actually I'm not going to talk about this right now. I want to share this, though, what Sophia wrote and shared about her progression, her spiritual progression, because I think her comment was very, very interesting and very worthwhile, because it gets into balance and of making sure we're in a position of balance so that we don't, because she writes in one part of this that how we can get so intense into the spiritual and give ourselves over so completely that we feel like we're going to go mad, that we get too out of balance, too deep into the spiritual, too deep into theories, too deep into worship, that we take ourselves so deeply in to seeking God that we lose balance. We lose balance with our inner nature, with the outer nature of the world. So I thought what she said was so important to keep in mind balance. And if the spiritual world and the spiritual realm and the study and the growth gets too deep for us at any given time, choose the positive, choose love, choose joy, and take a step back and don't get into it so seriously. Pull back some and just ease, relax and rest and flow. That was part of the message that Jesus had given in that poem. Rest, relax, go with my energy, go with my flow. Because it's dangerous to get too focused or out of balance, too deep into the spiritual, or too deep into philosophy, or too deep into, say, the Fibonacci numbers, or concepts that strain our mind too much and becomes not positive then. You follow? Because right after my divorce, or I wasn't even divorced yet, but God was moving me so rapidly through growth, spiritual growth, and opening me up to visions and to locutions and things that I had not experienced before. And it was getting heavy duty for me. I was stretched, my mind and my soul was being stretched a little beyond of what it was comfortable for me. And at one point, I remember thinking, am I having a breakdown? Am I having a breakdown? And I went and talked to Dr. H about it. And there's this other psychologist, and he turned out to be not a good person at all. Not a good psychologist. Not a good person. And I had to get away from him. He was a naughty one. And the devil does that with people. He chose negative, that man did. Naughty, negative, ugly, bad. Took advantage of women. Tried to seduce through his practice. That is pretty sick, isn't it? So you got to stay away. And even if you just lightly sense it, get away. Get away from a negative. Don't think, oh, I can withstand it, or, well, he's got good points, or he's known to be good with psychology or whatever. Anyway, and I can withstand it. Don't. Choose the positive and be strong. Truth, love, positive, life, truth. I said truth. Light, the light, not darkness. Someone who's doing wrongs is dark, not light. They're not truthful, breaking the law, deceitful, play upon you in your weakness and vulnerability, and then start making the moves. So, so you got to, we have to, that's part of what God wants in learning love and in learning what pleases God and what will take us into the energy and power of good. Truth, beauty, goodness is to choose the positive, to choose love, to choose good, and be firm against the other, no matter what it is. But then later on, I got away from that guy, but with a lot of help from God too, and trying to think what was the circumstances that I felt like the New Age people I got involved with. That God told me right away, get away, follow no one, and let me make sure. He made sure I knew it was this New Age group. But and it's not that they're evil. For me, it wasn't what God wanted. It was not good for me. God was opening me up. I didn't need to be confused by others. He wanted me to follow him. He was going to teach me the supernatural realm. And he did. And he will you too. And we don't leap ahead. That's not positive. To go faster than we can handle. Like God said, relax. Go slow. Let me lead, in other words. Follow my flow. When we start to go ahead too fast or offer things like Sophia was saying, that she would never want, she is a religious solitary. She did not make vows. She did not make public or private vows to be a hermit. And she says there was something in her that she felt she could not give herself fully in that way, or in a way to God, that totally of a giving over of herself. she felt that she would go mad if she did that. Well, that was her instinct, at least for then, saying, wait, God will take her wherever he wants her to be. He will do that. Then if she balks at that, he'll keep working on her, keep working on her, keep working on her. It was what, 30 years, 40 years for me to grasp this about what he means about my choosing positivity and staying away from negativity. I had already determined that if I was making anyone uncomfortable when I went yesterday, that I would just, nicely sort of make my retreat in a loving way or whatever. But I was also very careful to listen to what they needed and to how busy they were. So I listened as she quickly went over where they would be and what they were doing, made very positive comments, which was easy to do, and kindly. And I didn't hang, oh, but this, oh, but wait. Didn't do any of that. I notice I can do that even on the phone. Somebody said, well, I really need to go, and I'll think of something else I want to talk about. That's not love. That's self. So this whole process is a dying to self. And what Sophia maybe wasn't ready was to die that total last bit to self. And I think I haven't either. Obviously, I still have so much self left. But the holy ones that have died to self to such a high degree that they are so linked with nature, so united that a wolf will be their friend, or a lion, or they don't need much food to survive because they are so in tune with bread or with flour, with wheat and flour and yeast and water, the components of bread, or they just don't need that much. They absorb food from the universe, from the cosmos. They absorb from the earth, from nature, in unseen ways, so they don't hunger as much. Their bodies are, it's miraculous, but that's because they have come to that level of purity of love in that particular way. So I suspect that Sophia is closer to God than what she recognizes. A lot of you are. The things that you write, the insights are so wise and so inspirational and good and positive that I see you connected with God and far more evolved. I'm not there. I'm still very selfish. I have too much self still. But that's going to change because I get it now. What will transform is positive and good and love in the smallest details of our every moment we live. Through just even our thoughts, our words, our images that come up to us. If they're a negative image, I get these flashbacks that are so awful. Just gently shoo them away, brush them away. Somebody once said, just, take it as if it's fog on a window. Just wipe it off, just gently wipe, clear the fog, and have more clarity and see more clearly. And it was true. I knew this. If you do have any situations that are too much, like Sophia felt, giving over completely to God to the degree she was going to, which must have been at a very deep, deep, deep state. She at that point, a deep giving over, deeper than probably anything I've ever experienced, that she felt, no, I can't, I would go mad if I do this. So that was a little warning. Not yet. And God may have already have her there without her realizing it. I don't know. Because God can do things that we have no comprehension and don't need to know. Like when I was thinking about, I had this brief little thought the other day. Oh, what if heaven really is just lines and diagrams? And, oh, that wouldn't be so interesting. But then I thought, stop thinking that way. If I'm in that mode, or if that's, it would be. It's a whole nother dimension. It's a whole nother place that when I was just on my way and in the anteroom to heaven, where God was, having me decide if I want to go on or go back. The love and the glory and the joy, there was so much I didn't want to go back. So even after he showed me my children, but I couldn't say it, it was too much. I finally said, I'll do whatever you want. And he immediately said, I'm sending you back to rear your children and fulfill your mission, of which this is my mission. I think sharing my spiritual life, such as it is. So, and ongoing what I'm learning as I'm going along. So I'll keep looking at the poems. I'll keep paying attention. I'm really practicing. Now I'm practicing. And I've got to brush away. I'll do like I do with wasps. I try to get a tissue and grab it gently, like it's in a little parachute, and let it fling out the window or the door. Open it up and go like that. Because I don't like to kill bees or wasps. Flies, if I can open the window and get it out, that's my preferred. If it's a big buzzy one and it's night and I need to get to sleep, it's usually in summer, if I tell it's going to buzz itself out pretty soon. But otherwise, I will whap it. But I haven't killed a fly even in a long, long time. I haven't had to. I've managed to get them out. But, and spiders, but the one thing that I regret is I've killed some ants, some big black ants. But they're the kind that eat the wood. I have wood around part of the foundation vents. And they can get up even into your structure. You don't want these black carpenter ants. So I did get some spray that's supposed to get rid of them. But, we have to do some things. But in general, I like to live and let live. That's a positive. I do get triggered. I got triggered, was it yesterday? Oh yes, getting my phone. I started to freak out. The young gal there, the manager was there, Ethan, and this young gal, Keisha, very sweet girl, but she had a terrible chest cough. And then would do this or this. Well, I'm old enough and know enough that, and then she needed to use my phone, my regular phone, to try to get things done. So she would take that, and then I would go over to their squeeze bottle of that stuff that's supposed to get rid of germs, Germ-X or something, and slather it on my phone and on my hands. But I was just getting gritchier and gritchier with panic. And I kept even telling myself, now don't panic, don't assume you're going to get sick. But I remembered last year and how the neighbor young man had come and he thought he had gotten over his horrible sinus and cough thing, but obviously hadn't. And he'd helped me for a couple hours. We were working in the stairwell. And I got so sick, and I was sick for 11 weeks. So sick. And I just thought, I don't want that. I don't want that. But, anyway, I was out of balance. I was out of balance with fear of getting sick again. So, anyway, I'm trying to work on the positive and to not allow myself to get freaked out, to lose balance. When we're in spiritual growth or any kind of growth or transformation, we want to stay in balance, balance, balance. So we don't feel like we're going to go crazy or go mad. If we let the spiritual get too intense, then it's not positive. So, those are just thoughts I've had about balance and the times where I thought I was having a breakdown. And it got close. I think it felt like it did. That I was on the very edge of the universe kind of thing with intensity, a lot of intensity, and a lot of growth that I was going through. So stay with scripture and keep physically moving. Keep balance with your diet and in all other ways when you're in a mode of spiritual growth, transformation. Stay calm, relaxed, and let God do the leading. And if it gets too intense, pull back. Not negative, but with balance. And love and all the good. God bless His real presence in us. The Holy Trinity dwells within. God bless you all.